Hello, everyone. So my name is Chevrotière. I'm a Director of Business and Mobility Strategies at the Agence de mobilité durable Montréal. We're happy, Nicolas Filion and I are happy to present to you today the new agency. We are a brand new organization. We started our activities last January 1st. So essentially, I will introduce to you, our presentation will be in two parts. I will explain to you a little bit of the agency and our strategic planning process, and then I will leave Nicolas present to you our 5 priority mandates that were given to us this year by the City of Montreal. There will be a question period at the end. So part 1, the agency. So some key dates that led to the creation of the agency. Back in 1995, the City of Montreal gave to Société en commandite Stationnement de Montréal, that most of you must know, the responsibility of managing paid parking for the City of Montreal. Over the course, and then during the following years, especially in 2003 and 2007, the City of Montreal made their master urban planning and their transportation plan for the City of Montreal. Both plans actually identified the parking as being levered to many urban strategies that the city wanted to create or make or see happen. Of course, back in 1995, the economic situation in Montreal was not as good as it is now. Quebec and Canada was in the midst of an important recession. So the city was looking for some revenues, extra revenues. And it's one of the reasons why Société en commandite Stationnement de Montréal was created and given, it was actually entrusted to the Chamber of Commerce. So through those 2 master plans that were done by the city in 2003, 2007, then 10 years later, the City of Montreal adopted their first parking policy, which identified parking as a lever to sustainable mobility. And there were 3 priority actions that were recommended, or 3 priority recommendations. The first one was the creation of a municipal parking management body. So it took about 3 to 4 years to actually begin the activities of the Agence de mobilité durable. We started, like I said, back January 1st, just before the pandemic, just perfect time. So the agency is actually, before the creation of the agency, the functions of parking were actually split between Stationnement de Montréal, like I said, for the management of the parking, as well as everything that had to do with enforcement of parking regulation that was under the Montreal Police Department. So essentially, the Agence de mobilité durable's mandate is to manage parking in a way to leverage their sustainable mobility component. So the agency at a glance. So what is the agency after the fusion or the integration of Stationnement Montréal and the enforcement department of the police department, the parking enforcement? So it's just under 300 employees. We have over 18,000 on-street parking. It's interesting, though, 5,800 of those on-street parking actually have bike rings attached to the poles. So we also have about 3,000. We manage about 3,000 off-street stalls. There's just close to 1,500 pay stations. Citizens can actually rent parking, off-street parking to keep their cars. So we emit about 19,000 permits. We enforce 19 different parking regulations throughout the city. In 2019, there were actually 66,000 towing done. 45,000 of those towings are actually done during the winter season. We answered to 88,000 calls, 16,000 emails answered, just under 23 million transactions back in 2019. Our revenues are 69 million. of which 16% are paid by coins, 17% through the credit cards, and 2/3 through our app, mobile app, P-Dollar. Interesting fact, we have about 500,000 active users, and this is right now. So there's no duplicate, and they're actually active users right now, even though we're going through a pandemic. We have 183 parking agents. This number will increase over the next few months. And back in 2019, 874,000 violation tickets were emitted by the agents. So our mission, we have essentially 4 components to our mission. First and foremost, the core business of the agency is parking. It's a continuation of affairs. So we need to apply, of course, the municipal guidelines and policies on parking. We need to recommend development strategies. We need to ensure the technology development, as well as developing of all the charging stations for electric vehicles. Another component is the modulation of parking. We already, of course, modulate through times and space parking, but of course, fare modulation is something that we are looking into, and the city asked the Agence to actually implement. We also, and the third bullet of our mission is actually at the core really of the future of the agency, where we're asked to support action that will promote urban mobility by offering better integration of transportation modes, fares, information system, and the sharing of the public room, the public space. Our fourth bullet is to actually make recommendations to the city of Montreal on parking and mobility issues. So there's an expertise component here that the agency already has through these parking operations, but also will need to develop over the next few years for all the mobility issues. So when we decompose our mission, we essentially identify 4 areas of intervention. So of course, ensure management and development of parking, promote urban mobility, ease public realm sharing, and improve customer service. Also, when we decorticate our business cycle, we see at the top the adoption of policies and regulations. The what essentially comes from the city of Montreal, but the rest is actually the how. And this is the agency's mandate. So the implementation of strategies or project, the enforcement and operations, and the impact and performance assessment. At the middle of all is data and technologies development. So when we start thinking of the future of the agency, I always like to go back in time and look at those old pictures. It's about 100 years ago. But what's interesting is just 100 years ago, our streets were actually shared by all different modes. Cars were starting, pedestrians were there, we could see trolley cars. There were horse-driven carriage and horse pool. And in very little short time, we, as societies and collectively, we were able to actually change the way our city, mobility of cities was being done. Between 1922, 23, 24, 25, it was collectively decided that streets should now be given to cars to make them fluid circulation, but also it was a matter of protecting pedestrians at the time. But we can now beg to differ and say that maybe we can argue that pedestrians were not as well protected as maybe it was wished at the beginning, and that pedestrians now are looking for their space in our public space. So as you all know, our streets are transforming right now, not only in Montreal, of course, but all throughout the Western world and important cities. And what are we talking about when we talk about transforming our cities, our streets? Well, first is to give more comfort and more security to vulnerable pedestrians and cyclists and older people and with people with reduced mobility. So it's a matter of space allocation. Of course, we're trying to provide more space, bus reserve lane notably, for more efficiency on the transit trips and better use of the limited resources of the transit authorities. There are also all the growing uses, such as the Amazon delivery that is exploding, or all virtualization of businesses. and commerce, and as well as all the TNCs that need more and more space. And of course, it's a matter of mitigating cars, mitigating the space they consume, but as well as the speed that they go in our city streets. So of course, when we talk about the public realm, we're talking about all this public space between facade to another. In Montreal, we estimate that about 3/4 of that space, that public space, is actually dedicated to cars, either for parking or circulation. But as we know, we can share that space. We can share it in different ways, and the only way that sharing will actually be efficient at all is if it's well enforced. So of course, throughout large cities and throughout the Western world, we see cycle paths come. We also see cycle lanes appear now. In Montreal, we have the new REV network, which is a dedicated cycle lane throughout the city. We also know, of course, of the bus peak periods reserve lanes, but we are also seeing now bus lanes, permanent bus lanes. And of course, you can see the integration of bus stops using some parking space, but maybe a different use of public space. For example, in Quebec, 85% of all transit trips are actually done through bus. But most of the time, when you look at a bus stop, they don't look that comfortable to wait at. So there's definitely some improvement that can be done at bus stops. Of course, we've seen them in Montreal before, but during the pandemic and the confinement of last spring and summer especially, terraces and rest areas really became more and more popular. And of course, we had streets closed during the summer, and even before the pandemic, streets were closed often in Montreal for festive, for some festivities or some sidewalk sales and what's not. And of course, there's always the sidewalks and crosswalks that are for the pedestrian. But even sidewalks and crosswalks, especially sidewalks, they can be divided in various components. You first have the frontage zone. This is the space where it's actually a buffer zone between the business and the through zone. This through zone needs to be always empty, free of any obstacles for people with reduced mobility or with visually impaired people. And then you have the furnishing zone, or also known as the curb. And of course, that curb for the last 100 years was essentially used for parking, but as we know now, it's being used. There are many different usage that are actually competing for that limited space. So you have the charging station, you have the drop-offs or TNCs and taxis, you have the delivery zones, you have carpooling or passenger drop-off, you got the bus stops. In Montreal, you have the public bike system stations. You also have bike supports. We even have now those little mechanic station where you can repair your bike in that space. You have fire hydrants, lighting poles. You have the snow removal, the street maintenance. You have the garbage pickup. You have you have benches. You have vegetation to collect the rainwater. You have terraces. And I'm sure if we would spend 5 more minutes, we would identify more competing uses for that limited space, which is the curb. So now we've been seeing over the last few years that debate on the curb, and many are arguing that it might become it is probably the new frontier for mobility. And the agency will look over the next few years at how can we be more efficient in the administration and management of the curb and use it in a more dynamic way. Also, we all know about those trip planners, very classic. It's interesting to look at the car. Even though trip planners have been better giving, evaluating the time to actually make a trip during various times of the day with congestion. Trip planners most of the time do not consider the time associated with parking. So essentially nowadays, when you look at Google Map, it's essentially like if the car would just appear in front of your house, and once you're at your destination, you just fold it in a luggage and you can just go do your activities. So it's a bit of unfair, because then, of course, transit, you always need to provide the most accurate time. But now with the real time data, TNCs, even TNCs are a bit more fair when they give time evaluation. What would happen if we were able, as an agency, an organization, to provide drivers with the right information? Would motorists still want to use their car, knowing that transit might be faster and cheaper, or the bike path or using their bike will take the same time, but for free, and they will have access to comfortable and safe pathways, bike path? So we could imagine modulating parking information. Right now, we do have 500,000 clients or motorists using our app to pay their parking once at the destination. But the challenge that we'll have over the next few years will be to have motorists open the app before the beginning of their trip to actually look at what the parking situation will be, and then decide where they should actually park. And maybe if we can provide them with a better modulation of parking offer, they will be interested in maybe parking a bit further down where it could be cheaper or at least much easier to find parking, thus reducing pollution and traffic. So a quick overview of our strategic plan mandate. The strategic plan process, what we are hoping for is that it will allow the agency to identify the means necessary to accomplish our mission. So our strategic plan is not a plan to say where we should put bike lanes or put bus lanes, reserve lanes. This is not our prerogative. This is the city's prerogative. They say what to do. We say how to do it. So we need to identify the means necessary to accomplish the mission the city gave us. As I said earlier at the very beginning, the Agence de mobilité is actually the integration of two very different cultures. From one side, you have a police culture that is used to work in the public sector. On the other hand, you had a private company, essentially, with a private mentality and private approach to management of parking. Those two cultures need to work together, and some internal processes will need to be reviewed or developed to make to fully integrate the two organizations together. There's actually also a strong wish that we position the agency as a mobility and public realm manager. And also a very interesting thing, we have our the mandate. City asks us to actually evaluate which other elements of our mandate or letters patent we should be modified to provide the agency with the capacity to actually implement more mobility elements in the future. Of course, this strategic plan will need to be in line with the city's policies and strategies. And we are hoping to have a plan submitted by April and adopted before the summer. That's a wish that we have. As you might know, Montreal will be in, it's an election year next year. So we hope that by summer, our plan will have been adopted. We have three principles that drove or is driving our process. First, our name and our mission are very ambitious. So ambition is definitely one of the principles. We, when your name is mobilité durable, sustainable mobility, people expect a lot from it. Then the second principle is pedagogy. We need to explain the development and implementation of the plan. Mobility is a subject that deals with everybody's daily activities and routine. It's hard to make changes to mobility elements because you affect people in their daily life. So when we do what we will do or what we will implement, we need to better explain why we're doing it and what the mitigation measure will be if, in any case, it has any impacts in their life. Pedagogy is a very important principle. Finally, engagement of our stakeholders outside of the agency, but also of all of our employees and managers is essential for the success of our strategic plan. So ambition, pedagogy, and engagement are the three principles at the heart of our process. We wanted a fairly simple planning process, 3 steps. We are in the midst of step 1. What do we want to be? So essentially, it's all the vision and mission component. We are actually doing we have actually done some envisioning sessions with our board members, with city officials. We're doing 4 panels with more than 20 stakeholders from different sphere of the activities. We are also we will be doing strategic interviews with key actors of mobility. In the region of Montreal. So we hope that all this information will be acquired over the next few months, few weeks now, and through the fall. And by Christmas time, we'll have accomplished that first step. Beginning in January, then we will identify what we want to do over the next 10 years. The City of Montreal only asked us to do a 3-year plan, but this plan being so ambitious, we hope that we are trying to identify the things that will need to be accomplished over the next 10 years, so we can actually find the means that we need to prioritize over the next 3 years to realize our strategic plan. And the step 3 will actually be that prioritization, how we will do it. As you can see, employee involvement will be going on throughout the 3-step process. And the step 4 is essentially the annual implementation, all these processes that I was talking before. So that's it. That's the end of my part. I will now give the screen to my colleague, Nicolas. There'll be questions.
Thank you, Charles. Hi, everyone. So it was a great presentation on the creation of the agency and the strategic planning process. I'm Nicolas Filion. I'm Director of Technology at the Agence de mobilité durable, and I will talk to you about our 5 priority mandates. So as you learned, we had to merge the 2 existing organizations, Stationnement de Montréal, that you already knew, and the Montreal Police Parking Enforcement Section, and create a new one while pursuing both organizations' activities. Charles talked about creating a 10-year plan, a 3-year strategic plan, and obviously next year business plan. But before all that, we had 2020, the first year, the transition year. And what I will present to you today is a list of the big 5 priority mandates that were given by the City of Montreal for this first year. They kept us together with COVID-19, very busy for all the year of 2020, and should continue to do for the years to come. Many of them will drive some significant parts of our future planning. So here it goes. First one is finding parking solutions for the St. Catherine Street major works project. The second one is the introduction of LPR, license plate recognition. Third one is the introduction of dynamic parking rates, rates with some modularity, like Charles talked about. Fourth mandate is optimization of enforcement operations, And the fifth one is the access to paid parking space for self-service vehicles. We're talking about car sharing operators. So first mandate, parking solutions for St. Catherine Street. St. Catherine is one of the major commercial artery of the downtown Montreal, and it's undergoing major transformation with more sidewalk, more street furniture, but less parking spaces. No parking spaces during the work and less parking spaces when it's all done. In order to offset that loss of parking spaces, the first mandate is to provide an alternative for the automobilists going to that part of downtown and provide a solution without having to build new actual parking. The thing is, there's still a lot of parking available surrounding St. Catherine Street with all the private indoor garage. It is just less obvious for the automobilist. So the goal of the project is to make it easier for them to use and find all of the parking that is available in that section. We also want to improve the user experience with this new capacity rather than just building more parkings, as I said. And the project is twofold. First, we made some agreement with private owners and operators to provide a similar offer to what is on street in terms of pricing inside of parking garage. And secondly, we deployed a new mobile app with some new feature making it easier to find those parkings and navigate downtown. So in order to pool the parking offer with private parking owner and operators, we had an agreement with Indigo Park Canada and Complexe Desjardins. Both of them totaling 4 parking lots located right to St. Catherine Street and totaling 1,500 parking spaces with on-street pricing for short-term parking. So in these participating lots or garage, should I say, between 11 a.m. and 9 p.m. all week long and during all weekend, it will be the same time to park inside than it is to park in a park meter on street on St. Catherine and around. So $3.50 an hour, up to a maximum of 2 hours. After that, it will be the private owner regular pricing. So with these agreements and these new parking offers that extend what is available on street, we deployed a new app for easy access to these. It is actually a sister application to our regular app, which is called $$ mobile service that you can see in the first screenshot. It's at the top. The one at the bottom, the yellow one, it's the new app. It's a sister app in the sense that you can connect to this new pilot project with the same login information as the original one, but it integrates new features like map with many parking options, including if you look at in the second screenshot, the yellow ones are parking with which we have agreements with the pricing. Gray one are regular private parking garage. Blue one are Agence own parking lots. We also look into adding our on-street inventory on there. There is also integrated navigation tool with which use Waze or Google Map, and there is also a merchant program that is in there to also help people parking downtown. If you already knew, we are P mobile service is built by Passport. It's a Passport product, and we had Passport as partner for the second sister app too for this project. So the key dates. In July, we publicly announced the beginning of this project and began a recruitment phase for beta testers. In a week, we had more than 5,000 users that signed up, so we were really thrilled. And we began the test phase early August with 1,500 of them. They were able to use the new app to go to the parking garage with the new rates, and everything went as expected. So September 30th, we launched publicly, and the app is available for download for the general public. Then after that, in October, we began the development of the merchant program, and we will beta test it with some merchant in the coming next week. We also added Complexe Desjardins in November, because we began the project with Let's Go, and now we added Complexe Desjardins, and we will add more in the future, more parking partners, and also more features. Features that we look to add in the near future. The first one is the dynamic parking guidance. We have in Montreal a program with actual physical signage to indicate the parking real-time parking availability for some private parkings. We are looking into bringing all of it inside the application. So on the map, you could see the availability in those parkings. We also want to add our on-street inventory, and as soon as we're able to, the real-time availability in there, and also the merchant program. We are, for the merchant program, might be quicker. We are looking into Christmas shopping marketing program with the merchants of St. Catherine. So that was for St. Catherine, an app and partnership with a private garage. Second one is introduction of license plate recognition for enforcement. So a bit of context first. We have a proof of concept that you see on the picture, LPR car. It's been there since a couple of years now. We use it. We used it to test and make a proof of concept for enforcement of our pay-by-place parkings, because Montreal metered on-street spots are pay-by-place. So, we have this one. There is also a project that is joint project by Netlif Genetech and Montreal Art Institute. It's in one of the borough of Montreal, and they are doing a pilot project for enforcement with LPR while allowing carpooling. A very interesting project. There's a presentation. I think it's tomorrow at 2 p.m. with Genetech, Netlif, and the Art Institute. So you should go listen at this session too. And the third thing that that is going on with LPR in Montreal is the field survey that we do for occupancy with our LPR car. So not enforcement, but we scan the streets, and we are providing some of the borough or the city with surveys and reports on occupancy. Another context piece is the need to modify some of the provincial laws to allow for management of citations by the agency. Right now, they have to go through the municipal court. So that limits us a bit. So the project is going with 3 key deliverables in the coming weeks and months. The first one is to do a proof of concept for residential parking enforcement with LPR. We will look into extending what is going on with NetLift and Montreal Heart Institute to a bigger part of the borough, bigger part of the city. So we will test that. Second one is to assess the impact of the city's COVID-19 recovery plan measure that has been called for downtown. That means it's parking will be free during the weekend. Actually, it began last weekend and will last until end of year. So we will definitely survey the main commercial streets with LPR cars during those weekends and provide statistics on the usage, like parking duration, turnover, occupancy, and etc. The third deliverable, it's an international benchmark that we are preparing for to see what is done in other cities, in technology speaking, as well as what type of LPR that is done, to what extent, and what is the experience that will help us build our LPR program in 2021. And I will say that we are interested in hearing about you. If you or your city are using LPR, we would definitely be interested in knowing how it's going and how did you deploy that. So that was for LPR, one really big project that just started and will last for many years. Okay, third one, it's dynamic parking rates. So this one has been separated in three main parts. First one was a lot of background work with the data. We had to manually produce a lot of occupancy report and upgrade our BI infrastructure in order to provide significant and useful data to go with the second phase, which is analyze all that and propose some changes to the rates for certain and at a certain price for certain zones and certain times. So when we talk about dynamic parking rates here, it's to be more flexible than what we have now. What we have now is one single place is at one price, and the price cannot change. We can change the period, the hours, put interdictions, and all of that, but the rate is always the same. So we want to be able at first to change the rate for different days or different times of days for certain areas. So all of this has to be computed, and proposition will come. And then we should be able to put it into production. But first we have to do some major upgrades to our rate engine and all the management systems that are used to configure the rate engine in order for them to be able to understand different kind of parking rates. Fourth mandate, optimization of enforcement operations. So as you heard with Charles, we just since January 1st, we are a team with in the agency with the enforcement division that was with Montreal Police Department the years before. So this team is responsible for enforcement for a very large area, 4,000 kilometers of streets. It's 19 boroughs. It's a large area. It's 3,000 of street stalls. Stats that Charles showed us earlier. 19,000 permits, 18,000 on-street metered places. It's 183 parking agents issuing almost 900,000 tickets, and a lot of towing, especially during the winter snow removal operations. In order to optimize the work of this team, we improved the coverage with better liaison with the borough. We changed and adapt some of our practices to go where they need us to be, in order to enforce more intelligently. And the city is big and wide, and different boroughs have different need in terms of parking enforcement. So we align with their needs. For example, we aligned some of our enforcement routes with street maintenance schedule in order to be optimal. And there was a lot going on this year on that side. We also added a fleet of 20 electric assisted bicycles, in order to provide different means of transportation for the agents, especially in dense downtown areas, but also to be more sustainable. There's ongoing right now. There's an in-depth revision and consolidation of all parking enforcement and monitoring to bring everything to still a next level. And we also have to integrate our new team to the IT infrastructures and the agency processes. Fifth and last priority mandate is the access to paid parking spaces, park meter spaces downtown for self-service vehicles. We're talking about car sharing, and more specifically in Montreal, Communauto, because we had Communauto and Car2Go, but Car2Go left earlier this year. But nonetheless, the demand for car sharing is growing rapidly. Communauto's fleet, it's already at 3,000 vehicles, has grown by nearly 700 units this year. But these vehicles can end their run only on only a few reserved authorized spaces downtown that are not metered, that you can park with a sticker on the rear window. The city of Montreal was looking to improve access to downtown area for these vehicles, and since most of the spaces are paid spaces, the project was to allow for them Communauto Flex free-floating cars users to finish a trip downtown on a paid parking space. So how this works is the user of Communauto park on paid parking space. In Communauto app will indicate the parking number used, will be charged a flat fee of $5, and then it's all between Communauto servers and the agency, and Communauto will pay for the actual duration and all the time that the car is parked in the space, and all the time that is paid, that has a tariff, will be paid. So if the car stays for 20 minutes, they will pay 20 minutes. If it stays for 2 days, it will pay for 2 days. But it's much shorter in practice from what we see. For that, changes were made to a municipal bylaw to allow that kind of payment by these self-service vehicle, and also an API was developed, and a lot of work, software development was done by Communauto and the Agence to let, and from the side of the Agence, it's an API that let any self-service vehicle operator to start and stop a parking session remotely. So high level, how it looks, it's at the end of the ride, the user will input the space number in the app, Communato will make a rate lookup to see if there's any restriction. It will also get the rates. When the user acknowledges that, it will start a parking session. And the parking session will be ongoing until a new user will reserve the car and begin a new ride. So when the car is moving, Communato will send us the session ID and a stop signal, and we will end the parking session. In the meantime, if an agent is enforcing the area and look up on his tool to see if the space is paid, it will be marked as paid. It's going well. We will run it this pilot project until December, and mid-December we will both with Communato and the Agence, we will assess the success of this pilot project and might make it permanent. So that was the last one. These were the 5 big projects for 2020. As you can see, it has been a very busy year at the agency, and we are very happy to be able to offer you a glimpse of our vision and key initiatives. As the use of streets, cars, and other means of transport has evolved over time, the timing is ideal to apply a paradigm shift and switching to a para-municipal organization with the mission of the Agence, the widening of the mandate, with all that Charles mentioned earlier, and putting mobility at the heart of our action is definitely thrilling. Still, parking is a cornerstone of any mobility strategy, and we are definitely on the cusp of a new era of parking management and urban mobility. We very much look forward to building it with all of Montreal's actors and key players, and we are very happy to share that with you today. And we will also be very happy to answer any of your questions right now. Thank you.